Hi there, I'm Tom Field. I'm Senior Vice President of Editorial with Information Security Media Group, here at Black Hat at ISMG Studio to talk about a new partnership and a new integration. Joining me to discuss it are Rich Campagna, is SVP Products with Palo Alto Networks, joined by Chris Boehm, Field CTO with Zero Networks. Gentlemen, thanks so much for taking time to speak with me tonight.
Of course.
All right. What are the primary security challenges, first of all, that your partnership, your integration aims to solve for your joint customers?
You want to start?
Sure. Yeah. I'll take that one and hand it over to you. So, for our joint customers, it's all about eliminating lateral threat movement, right? If you look at the big incidents out there, the difference between a small security incident and a very big one is the ability for an attacker to move laterally within an organization's network once they made their way in. So if you talk to a CISO, they will tell you that the ability to contain lateral threat movement is absolutely paramount. The challenge is that it's always been really complex to achieve. And that's really what we're after with this partnership.
Yeah, I secondhand that. I mean, the main goal is when you think about your network security strategy, if you're looking at Palo Alto and Zero Networks, we're solving it from end to end. Mm-hmm. So it allows you to have the big picture, your company's secure, and then when it gets inside the company, which never should happen, right, we're there across the journey to say, hey, we can reassure any incident back to Palo, and it's a joint partnership.
Okay, let me put myself in the CISO's position here because I want to hear about the integration.
Yeah.
How is it going to help secure my east-west traffic to achieve secure microsegmentation, which I need?
Yeah, I can go with that one. So from a microsegmentation perspective, it's not new technology. When it comes down to it, we're looking at it from each asset. So identity level to workstation to server. And how we provide that is we learn on each asset and then automatically policy management it and then tag it into the Palo Alto ecosystem. So that's where the partnership comes in. So they have the enrichment of what we're seeing on each asset level, and then you can enforce it on a global scale and visibility.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think one of the key things, the reasons we were so interested in partnering with Zero Networks on this is that, for us, as a leader in the space for network security, the key strength that we bring to the table is primarily around layer 7 threat prevention.
Yep,
right? The challenge though with implementing microsegmentation has always been this complexity as around, identifying assets, ensuring that you have the right layer 7 threat prevention applied to the right traffic flows into the right assets. And so that's really where this partnership adds tremendous value. We have many customers that are using us for layer 7 perimeter protection, either in a campus, data center, cloud, etc. It's that combination of being able to implement those host level controls around assets, identifying those assets, and tie the two things together that really makes this powerful.
I'm going to click on that a little bit. Give me some use cases where the combined capabilities of Palo Alto and Zero are stronger than the solutions separate.
Well, we can start with something like ransomware containment, right? Mm-hmm. Ransomware for years now has been a big thorn in the sides of those CISOs. You were just putting yourself in the shoes of earlier, Tom. Here the big challenge, certainly customers will use something like a Palo Alto Networks firewall on their perimeter to stop ransomware from getting in. From getting across various different kind of macro segments of their network. But still, the thing that has made ransomware attacks really successful in the past, some of the big ones going back years to things like NotPetya as an example, has been the ability to move, one by one across the network. And so really to isolate that and to stop it, you need to contain things at the host level, at the individual device level. It's not sufficient to have this layer 7 ransomware prevention just at kind of boundaries of various different segments of your network, right? Your perimeter, if something gets in, you need to be able to stop it and isolate it at the host level. So the power here in ransomware containment is in our ability to identify, this threat, perhaps as it comes into the network or, kind of moves across some of these macro segments, but this kind of bi-directional communication into the Zero Networks, product as well. At the same time, to basically identify, hey, this particular asset has been infected by ransomware. We're going to isolate it to zero communications, not even within a local segment inside of the network. So we see the threat, we stop it where we can, push that into Zero Networks and stop that thing from communicating to anything. So you really have it at the source. And that's really powerful in terms of ransomware containment.
Excellent example. Anyone add to that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, think of the biggest attacks that's happened in the past 2 years. Most of those scenarios, unfortunately, me as a hacker has been authorized. And that's the challenge. After they've already, Palo Alto's like, you look good. All the security tools say you look like you're a normal user. But the challenge that most companies are facing is how do they verify that a user is not being malicious? And that's where I would say that we are making a big impact when it comes to multiple different industries, and then provide that insights back to Palo Alto, just as you mentioned. So when it comes to visibility, we can verify again and again and again through the whole entire process. So the blast radius just gets shrinked massively. Even if you did get to say, as a developer, I had source code access, and then I had access to some other things, I can't continue spreading across the whole company, thus blocking ransomware and lateral movement. And I mean, that's the real true goal. And it's a ongoing effort that everyone's facing today as a common scenario.
Now, how does the integration contribute to a comprehensive zero trust architecture strategy, which lots of organizations are talking about?
Well, heck, I think it's right on par with what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think the fundamental of zero trust is the kind of fundamental concept is never trust and always verify. Right. That's the kind of the fundamental construct that so many organizations have built kind of a core of their cybersecurity strategy around. And if you look at the elements that we bring to the table here jointly, right, we're starting by at that individual host level with zero networks, identifying the asset. It may be endpoint device like the iPad or whatever it is you have in front of you, maybe some IoT or OT asset that needs to be identified, perhaps something like a camera or a wireless access point or whatever the case may be. Regardless, you start with identifying what is trying to access and communicate on the network, and you have to apply this principle of least privilege, right? You're going to give that thing only the access it needs based on its identity, whether it's a user identity or a machine identity or what have you. You give it only the access it needs on the network, and you're going to stop it from there. So no additional sort of network access. That's the kind of the core starting point with zero trust. So you're identifying, authenticating, and authorizing, applying least privilege. But then, from there, on top of that, you need to continuously verify. You need to ensure that, whatever that is, that thing that's communicating, is not, spreading threats like that ransomware we just talked about across your network. It's not been somehow compromised and, trying to infiltrate or move laterally across and spread some sort of incident across the organization. So that's where the Palo Alto piece comes in. So you start with least privilege on zero networks, and you apply this layer 7 threat prevention and security controls on top of those critical traffic flows or potentially malicious or suspicious traffic flows. And you have a very powerful combination that really gets to the end goal or the promise of zero trust, that has been, quite frankly, elusive for a lot of organizations. They get, part of the way there, but not 100% of the way there. With this, they can.
Okay. Now, you've done a good job talking about how your solution can stop ransomware and other threats from spreading laterally. If you were to sum up here, how does the joint solution protect my most critical assets and my servers?
I mean, it's kind of going back to the zero trust story in the end. It's re-verifying and continually making it harder for attackers to even have the possibility of finding your crown jewels. So I think of it as any kind of company scenario. Hopefully, you may not have access to everything, but even if you did, if I was God mode in my whole company, I would have to re-verify through the whole process. So it would make it harder through the whole entire journey from northwest, east to south traffic within my network to make even lateral movement even possible, or even potential stealing of credentials or other information in my network. Yep. So really, the whole entire premise is for us to continuously do that. The challenge today, that's not impossible. The challenge is for our network teams to continuously do that and learn. And that's what microsegmentation is not new. It's been around for quite some time. Sure. There's macrosegmentation, microsegmentation. There's multiple different layers that's out there. What really put us in the cutting edge, where it's helping out Palo Alto, is we're learning and automatically providing the insights on a contextual and on a regular basis. So it's, you may change, I may change on a regular basis. We need to adapt on versus having a team catch it later that you should have blocked it or segmented it. So that's where we're really making the drive easier for companies like Palo.
Good. Anyone add to that, Rich?
Yeah, no, I think, maybe just to add to that a little bit, the customer view on this is that in an ideal world, they would put all traffic, even their east-west traffic, inside of their organization to full layer 7 inspection for absolutely everything. That's not practical from a cost standpoint. It's not practical from a management operations standpoint. So, in terms of critical assets, part of the core value here is we will take, the traffic from those critical assets that you absolutely want to inspect. You want to be absolutely certain that nothing is, nothing that's making its way into your, I don't know, your ERP systems or some other, critical data store has not been somehow compromised, or, some bad actor that's compromised machine is not getting in there. You want to provide that full layer 7 protection for all of those critical assets and applications. And that's, I think, really, it meets the need for the customer. They're fine with your iPad, no offense to your iPad, but, talking to maybe a print server, or, printer somewhere locally on the network with layer 3, layer 4 segmentation. But it's when a real critical asset, that's where they want to apply that layer 7 protection. So they identify it with Zero Networks that this is a critical asset and use that to steer traffic into a full layer 7 security capability.
Yeah. So back in the CISO's position, we're going to accept the premise that my security policies are a mess. I don't think I'm alone there.
Okay.
How is your integration going to simplify security policy management and ensure consistency across the hybrid environments I work with?
It's actually, it's a pretty beautiful integration in that, at the core, I described this before. What the Zero Networks technology is doing first and foremost is identifying assets, right? And applying that least privilege to it. And when it identifies that asset, identifies your iPad, it identifies that, IoT device, and identifies my PC on the network. It takes that identification, and it may change as I move around, maybe our campus, location as an example, my IP address is going to change. The correlation between what's happening on the network and the device attached to it will change. Takes all that information and in a continuous basis feeds that into the Palo Alto Networks firewalls so that you have this consistent set of, always up to date understanding of what's on your network and what is communicating everywhere, both in the firewalls and at the local network level itself. And that really simplifies policies. It allows you to unify that policy across both of these systems. And not only are they unified, but everything is always up to date. So when an asset moves, around an organization's network, there's no need to, kind of re-update policies or make changes. Everything is already up to date and automated.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's well said. Visibility, obviously, is a huge key when it comes to compliance and regulation, and knowing what you're doing and how you're handling it. From an audit trail perspective, we provide that audit trail visibility as well, and it scopes into tagging and it enriches it from a policy management perspective. I mean, all well said. So this guy knows our product pretty well.
Sounds like you know each other pretty well. So, yeah, Rich, Chris, thank you so much for taking time to talk about this partnership and this integration.
Of course, you, Tom. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Just heard from Rich Campagna with Palo Alto Networks and Chris Boehm with Zero Networks for Information Security Media Group at ISMG Studio. I'm Tom Field. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.